After Chainsaw Man's existence becomes known to the world, governments from America, China, Germany all set their sights on a single target, Chainsaw Man. Soon, four different assassination groups from America, China, Germany began arriving in Japan. One can transform humans into dolls, create an army from an entire city, one can perfectly disguise themselves as anyone, one possesses an ability that can drag everyone straight into hell, and another is so terrifyingly fast that by the time you realize she is attacked, you have already been sliced apart. Many fan favorite characters either die brutal deaths or are left broken and unable to contribute to the fight, and just when it seems things couldn't get any worse, the battle is dragged straight into hell, where everyone comes face to face with one of the most horrifying beings in the entire series. This is the International Assassin's Arc, where Denji is forced to pull the chainsaw once again to survive the nightmare that follows. We skip ahead to inside Denji's mind as he has another nightmare. Standing before the same door from his earlier dream, he once again hears Pochita ordering him never to open it. The next morning, at breakfast, Denji sits depressed while Power complains about Miyavi's newfound love for him. He ignores her, thinking about Reze and how she truly and irreversibly broke his heart this time. Later, Makima invites them on a paid vacation with her, causing Denji's mood to do a complete 180. He immediately jumps with joy. Aki and Denji instantly agree while Power tries making excuses not to go. As they discuss the trip's timing, a group of devil hunters suddenly enters the room. After speaking with Makima, she shows everyone a news recording of the fight against Reze. She explains that the Bureau have failed to censor the broadcast, meaning Chainsaw Man's existence has now been revealed to the world, and America and China both will be interested in him. Aki asks why would they make things harder. Makima replies they likely don't care as long as she doesn't get him. Power and Denji ignore this and continue talking about the vacation. But Makima interrupts them. She reveals the vacation is postponed. She orders various officials to meet her. Meanwhile, Denji is shocked that the trip is postponed. She explains that soon he'll face assassins from all over the world, which shocks Denji. Going ahead, Makima asks Aki to help protect Denji before telling him that public safety plans to hunt the gun devil within the next year. She orders him not to die before then. Aku recalls a conversation with the angel devil, who explained the supposed true nature of devils. When a devil dies on earth, it is reborn in hell. When it dies in hell, it returns to earth with no memory of its time there. Aki asks why he doesn't remember hell. He simply asks if he remembers his mother's womb, and then reveals a secret he asks Aki never to repeat. Every devil remembers only one sound from the moment before its death in hell, the same sound as the chainsaw's engine. Meanwhile, in America, a trio of part-time devil hunters discusses a new job: kill Denji and return his body to the United States in exchange for $2 million. It's dangerous as they have to kidnap him from public safety. The youngest brother, Aldo, says there's a chance of dying. The eldest says they can't die. He asks if they can imagine his death and panics. The others calm him down, reminding him that all three brothers survived the gun devil's attack. As they prepare to leave for Japan, their leader declares that the three of them are immortal. Elsewhere in a forest, a woman and a young man named Tolka hunt a fox. After Tolka shoots it, the woman asks if he felt like he took the fox's life. He says no. As he skins the animal, she asks again. He still says no. As he cooks it and serves it to her, she asks once more and again he denies it. The woman then explains they will be going to Japan to kill a 16-year-old boy. He says he will. She says they'll do the same thing to him as they did to the fox. He looks perplexed, referring to her as master. Tolka agrees, hoping to earn a retirement because she only has half a year left. She is left stunned. Meanwhile, in China, some highly educational and family-friendly activities are taking place between a woman named Quanxi and her group of companions. In the middle of it, a man arrives and asks her to capture Denji, the chainsaw devil. As payment, she may request any wish she wants. After consulting her group, they demand donuts, blood, and Halloween. Quanxi demands basic human rights and education for all of them. At the same time, Makima discusses Quanxi with Kishibe, expressing concern about both her and her companion's abilities. Kishibe says she'll be tricky. During the conversation, Makima says their biggest concern is the assassin Santa Claus from Germany. Although Santa Claus is believed to have died of old age, both remain cautious. Kishibe confirms that his abilities could likely surpass their own. Elsewhere in Germany, a government agent approaches an old man man sitting on a bench and informs him that Christmas has come early. The old man asks about the present. He informs him about the mission to hunt Denji. In return, the man asks for 4 children, 3 for a devil contract and 1 for pleasure. The agent agrees. Meanwhile, alone in his room, Denji lies in bed watching TV and sadly wonders why everyone wants his heart so badly and thinks who exactly is Pochita. He also complains about the trip being cancelled. Noticing his mood, Aki affectionately sits on him and explains that assassins won't target him for forever. The trip was only postponed, not cancelled. If they can inflict enough damage on their enemies, the attackers will retreat, allowing Denji to return to his normal life. After thinking it over, Denji reaches a simple conclusion. He'll just kill all his enemies so he can finally go on vacation. Now at the park, both Denji and Power eat snacks while watching birds and debating whether it's okay to eat these still living ducks. Denji accidentally drops his food, but when he tries to pick it up and eat it, he's stopped by a devil hunter named Kusakabe, who immediately scolds him. Kusakabe warns him about germs and food poisoning, increasingly frustrated because Denji is clearly a guy who grew up in the gutter. Aki, Angel, Yoshida, and Tamauki all agree that eating the food would be incredibly stupid. However, the eternally ignorant Denji immediately eats it anyway. In a flashback, the group introduces themselves. Makima explains that they, along with their trio of agents, will serve as Denji's personal security detail. Denji says this is a big deal. Kusakabe says he doesn't know anything and says Mr. Subaru is a busy man, yet he is gonna be a bodyguard. Kusakabe tries to establish his authority over Denji but is met with the usual sarcasm and yawns from our boy. Kusakabe asks him to properly say yes sir. Denji calls him dude and Kusakabe says he is his senior and he should answer him respectfully. Denji says whatever sir. Kusakabe says it's not whatever sir, it's yes sir. Elsewhere, the hunters Tendo, Kurose and Subaru take a smoke break while wondering why can't they simply hide Denji in human form. Subaru explains that other devils can still smell him. Then they prepare to leave. As they drive to meet the main group, Subaru asks about Makima. Tendo hesitates before saying there is something she wants to discuss regarding her. Before they can continue, a set of road spikes is suddenly thrown in front of the vehicle. The driver swerves to avoid them, but the car hits the spikes anyway and crashes. In the wreckage, Subaru wakes up just in time to see the 3 American brothers approaching the vehicle. Sadly for Subaru, and in true Floridian fashion, the Americans gun down all 3 hunters. Afterward, the 2 older brothers joke about the killings, while although the youngest reacts with horror. As they hide the bodies in the forest, the older brother asks Aldo how he feels about killing. He says it's a piece of cake while hesitating and pukes. Joey replies that it only gives him a mild sense of annoyance and disgust. The oldest brother bursts out laughing before morphing his face to match Kurose's. The 3 then change their faces as the victims and discuss their voice and mannerisms, and try many accents. And lastly, the eldest he adjusts his tone to accent to perfectly imitate him. Back with the main crew, they stop at a burger restaurant where Denji and Power eat together. Power keeps giving Denji her vegetables, but Kusakabe interrupts and orders her to eat them for her own health. The others agree, so Denji forcefully stuffs the vegetables into her mouth. Power begins sweating as she struggles to swallow a mixture of vegetables and vomit. Just then, the man and woman from the forest discuss that it's pretty busy there and have casual conversation. Just then, she walks past their table. Furious over what just happened, Power runs outside, causing the rest of the group to follow her. The woman sits down with Tolka and reveals that she has already stabbed Denji 3 times with a nail to activate the cursed devil. Only one more stab is needed. She entrusts the final stab to Tolka before biting into her burger but it slips. She thinks she lost sensation in her fingers due to the contract. She struggles to eat but still enjoys the experience. Elsewhere, the violence fiend kills a devil and asks Kobeni to come out. He asks to take a break. Both walk outside together. Kobeni thanks him for buying her an ice cream cone. Violence says he can't eat because of the mask, so he'll just watch her eat and be happy. She says the last time she ate was at her birthday but she dropped it. She questions how someone known as the violence fiend can be so friendly. He explains that he still retains much of his human brain, allowing him to keep many of his human memories. However, he remembers nothing about his death, only that Makima saved him. Suddenly, a car pulls up beside him. Inside is the American assassin disguised as Kurose. He gets out and tells them to report Tender Subaru's death to headquarters. Kobeni hesitates and Violence asks who is he. He angrily says his men have been killed and to report it. As they leave, he quietly comments to himself that how unbelievably gullible they are. Later, Denji and Power sit exhausted after spending the entire day on the move. Denji bitterly points out that instead of protecting him, they are really just using him as a bait to lure out the enemy. Aki openly confirms that this is true, but promises Denji that he'll still get his vacation, which calms him down. Power, however, remains furious. Aki offers her a reward in exchange for cooperating. Power immediately requests permission to drain a human's blood until they die. Aki pauses for a moment and agreeing to let her drain Denji instead. Denji instantly protests, but Power jumps onto his shoulders and screams with the excitement of a literal cannibal. The Violence Fiend, Kobeni, and the disguised American brother drive over to meet the main group. When they arrive, Aki speaks with the brother disguised as Kurose and asks him to reconsider staying on the mission. However, he lies and claims he wants to avenge Tendo and Subaru. As they talk, Power becomes distracted by Kobeni's car. In typical Power fashion, she jumps into the driver's seat, insists the car actually belongs to her and was stolen by Kobeni, and falsely claims she has a license. And though Kobeni quietly protests, Power immediately silences her by threatening to wash the car in her blood. Outside the vehicle, the fake Kurose suspiciously introduces himself to Denji, acting overly friendly and trying to shake his hand. Denji doesn't want to, but Aki insists, and he does. Suddenly, Power slams the car forward, ramming into both of them and instantly killing the disguised American brother. As everyone reacts in horror, Kobeni shivers in fear. Power desperately tries to blame Kobeni. Kusakabe points out that the man's disguise is fading. His true face is revealed, and Tamaki immediately recognizes him. He warns the others about the man's contract with the Skin Devil and the possibility that his brothers are also nearby. Aki turns toward Power. Moments earlier, she had been panicking and blaming Kobeni, but she instantly changes her story and claims she knew the truth all along, declaring that all the glory belongs to her. Yoshida says two remains and it could be any of them. Kusakabe says they'll show their devils to verify themselves. Meanwhile, inside the car, Kobeni remains curled up, sweating and sobbing in terror. Nearly two civilians watch the scene in fear before slipping into an alley to avoid being noticed. It is then revealed that they are actually Joey and Aldo in disguise. Aldo begins vomiting while Joey tries to stay calm and think of a plan. Suddenly, an unseen figure drags Joey around a corner where he is seemingly vaporized. The devil hunter Yoshida walks around the corner as Aldo quickly pulls himself together. He asks if he's alright. Joey says he just saw an accident and that's why he's terrified. Yoshida assumes he's just a bystander and walks away, quietly muttering that a professional wouldn't throw up. Somewhere in Tokyo, a car crashes into another vehicle. As one driver leans out to confront the other, he is greeted by Cosmo, who cheerfully repeats a single word, Halloween. The driver slowly begins repeating it himself over and over. Quanxi then appears and leads Cosmo and the other girls away. When Quanxi spots a sushi restaurant, she gets excited and the group heads inside. The staff are clearly terrified of them but serve them anyway, while Cosmos keeps making everyone repeat Halloween. As they wait for their food, Pink's starts listing random fish facts that almost all the white fish taste basically the same, the only difference being their texture and how oily they are. Meanwhile, Long casually takes a bite out of a ceramic plate. Stating that she is tired, Quanxi decides they'll hunt Denji the next day instead. Elsewhere, Aldo studies a photo of Kurose, Tendo and their friend Michiko Tomino, disguising himself as Kurose. He visits Tomino's apartment where he is invited inside. As they sit together, Aldo asks about Tomino's life. Tomino reveals that he has very few relatives or friends, and almost nobody ever checks on him. He then starts talking about how he came to Tokyo but hasn't got a hotel room. He says not to crash with him, he should go to her girlfriend's house, Misa. He explains they are having a fight. Tomino explains that Kurose had both a girlfriend and a mother who cared deeply about him. Aldo notices a photo of young Kurose on a soccer team. Seeing it causes him to break down, repeatedly apologizing. Much to Tomino's confusion, he thinks he's too drunk. Later, as the two prepare to sleep, Tomino continues speaking to who he believes is Kurose. He says he'll quit his job and suggests that Kurose should quit devil hunting too and open a small clothing shop instead, as if he continues his job, he might get killed just like his brother. He asks to look after his parents before they die. Tomino then brings up Kurose's deceased older brother and asks what he would think about Kurose's current life. Thinking of his own brothers, Alu realizes exactly what they would tell him. A pro always gets the job done. The next day, On a crowded street in Japan, a mysterious old German man casually touches a passerby's shoulder. The person immediately grabs another passerby, who grabs another, then another. The effect rapidly spreads through the crowd until the entire street becomes connected, transforming into doll-like creatures along the way, and the old man reveals himself as Santa Claus. Across the city, the four assassin groups, Tolka and his master, Aldo, the elderly German man, and Quanxi each prepare in their own way to begin hunting the Chainsaw Devil. Elsewhere, Makima walks through a pile of doll-like corpses inside a building. She orders Beam and Princey to protect Denji at all costs. She also says there will be a large number of deaths and retrieve as many bodies as they can. At a department store, the creepy old man watches Denji and the others from a distance through a window. Once they enter the building, he orders his dolls to attack. The dolls' arms transform into blades and begin following the group inside. However, as they charge through the entrance, Kusakabe is revealed to be crouching inside a ritual circle. Using the Stone Devil's power, he instantly petrifies the approaching dolls. Yoshida explains the Doll Devil's ability, stating that if a doll touches any part of a person, including their clothes, that person will be transformed into a submissive doll. Tamaoki says he knew they were coming because their footsteps were too systematic. Humans usually have some variation. Just then, another doll attacks, but Kusakabe petrifies it instantly. Agi suggests there must be a limit to how many dolls can be created, but at the exact moment, a massive swarm of dolls bursts through the windows and charges the group. As everyone rushes toward the second floor, power is suddenly grabbed. She and Denji tear the dolls apart with ease. Kusakabe notes that Denji and Power are likely immune to the doll devil's powers. As even more dolls swarm in, a devil hunter named Nakamura suddenly appears and summons the Fox Devil, which sweeps the attackers away. Tamaoki then explains that devil hunters had been stationed throughout every building and street nearby. The operation's true purpose was to hunt the assassin known as Santa Claus, the one responsible for creating the dolls. He further explains that anyone transformed into a doll can never be restored. Tamaoki then apologizes to Denji for using him as a bait. As the ability works at short range, the assassin must be somewhere nearby. Meanwhile, the woman known as Master sits waiting in a nearby park. Close by, Tolka tightly grips his nail, preparing to use it on Denji. Inside the department store bathroom, Aldo sits alone, mentally preparing himself for the coming battle. At the same time, the old German man unleashes another wave of dolls. Kobeni thinks of the cost of repair for the dent in her car. Elsewhere, Pinksty says they didn't get any sleep last night and they are a mess. When she replies, she'll mess her even more. As the old man creates more dolls, they flood into the department store, dodging the Fox Devil's attacks and charging forward. Aki says they are learning. Angel calls everyone useless and summons one of his weapons using 5 years of lifespan he had absorbed from humans and cuts down several approaching dolls. When asked why didn't he use such a powerful weapon earlier, he simply replies that he has his reasons. Outside, a group of devil hunters arrive to support the team. They realize the doll numbers are huge and think they might need to use firearms and devils. They are stopped by the sudden appearance of Quanxi and her companions, where Quanxi says in Chinese, "Girls, take care of the leftovers like always." As the hunters prepare to fight, Quanxi draws a sword and instantly dashes forward. In almost a single moment, she reaches the second floor of the building. After denting her sword from the speed and force, she tosses it aside and draws 2 more. Outside, Pinksty says a corpse is talking in Chinese. As he commands his other members, only then is it revealed that the devil hunters and dolls in her path have already been sliced apart. Agi asks Angel and Nakamura to defend themselves, but Nakamura, who reacts too slowly, is also instantly decapitated by her attack. He and the Angel Devil barely manage to block Quanxi's continuing assault before being knocked to the floor. Quanxi then comes to a stop and looks directly at the concerned Denji and Power. Outside, members of Quanxi's group continue destroying the remaining dolls. Suddenly, they are approached by Kishibe, Kobeni, and the Violence Fiend. Kishibe tells Kobeni and Violence to go inside. Using her ability, Pinksty determines that Kishibe has contracts with the Needle, Claw, and Knife Devils. However, she judges him harmless because he has already sacrificed nearly every body part nearly he could for contracts. Kishibe slowly advances toward them as both sides prepare to fight. Inside the building, Aki's group struggles to react to Quanxi's lightning-fast attacks. In an instant, she kicks Denji into the air before knocking out Kusakabe and Tamaoki. When she moves toward Yoshida, he summons the Octopus Devil to absorb the brunt of her attack. The Octopus Devil then sprays the room with ink, attempting to catch her off guard. Using the cover, Yoshida gets behind Quanxi, but she quickly knocks him down. Before she can finish him off, Kishibe intervenes, having already taken Long and Pinksti hostage. Kishibe orders Denji and Power to restrain the hostages, while Power reveals she had actually seen pretending to be dead in the entire time. Quanxi sits at a nearby chair, Kishibe sits right next, and they both look outside. Kishibe says the other two fiends got away. He tells her to stay put until things settle, promising to take her in then. Quanxi says this isn't like him and asks if being collared turned him into a dog. Kishibe says he's old now, and while speaking, he secretly holds up a message written in a notepad. Notes reveal that Makima is listening to their conversation and starts talking about retirement and growing old. Through the notepad, he asks her to do as he says and she'll be safe. Kishibe offers Quanxi her freedom if she helps him kill Makima. Quanxi refuses, using what sounds like an unrelated story. She explains that she prefers not to get involved, stating that ignorance is bliss, and finally tells him to be a good dog. At that moment, Aldo suddenly enters and fires at Denji. Kishibe kicks Denji out of the way, causing the shot to miss. However, Long uses the distraction to break free and grab Denji. Then in a flash, both Quanxi and Kishibe move to slit each other's throats. After exchanging several blows, Quanxi manages to throw Kishibe out of a window. However, he slows his falls by sliding down the side of the building before crashing onto Kobeni's car. Aldo continues firing at everyone involved in the fight, barely avoiding a fireball launched by Long. Quanxi then grabs him and throws him out of the window as well, sending him crashing into Kobeni's car beside Kishibe. Inside the building, the violent fiend continues fighting off a swarm of dolls, while Kobeni stares in absolute horror at the condition of a destroyed vehicle. Still holding Pinksti hostage, Power demands that Quanxi leave both her and Denji alone. Quanxi politely asks Power to stand down, promising that she won't be harmed, causing Power to hesitate. Suddenly being burst out of the floor, knocking Long away and freeing Denji from her grasp. As Denji decides to run, Quanxi is stopped by Yoshida, who asks for a rematch. The two immediately begin exchanging blows at incredible speed, constantly dodging each other's attacks while still landing several solid hits. During the fight, Yoshida notes that Quanxi is probably not human, as she barely reacts to several devastating strikes. Meanwhile, Denji and Beam flee together. Beam advises him not to waste blood by transforming into Chainsaw Man. As they run, Denji accidentally steps on Tolka's nail. Suddenly, both of them are shocked as Denji is launched into the air. The cursed devil activates, brutally tearing Denji apart. Moments later, Tolka appears and kicks Beam to the ground. Both Denji and Beam are left unconscious. The woman appears and applauds Tolka for his work. Ignoring his concerns about moving Denji's body, she begins explaining the secret to create a perfect doll. According to her, if you earn a person's trust, respect, worship, and pity over time before turning them into a doll, you can create a perfect doll. With that, she transforms Tolka, revealing that she is actually the real Santa Claus. The elderly German man was never Santa Claus at all. He was simply another perfect doll under her control. Meanwhile, as Aki and the other devil hunters regain consciousness, Quanxi defeats Yoshida and throws him through a window. As he falls, Yoshida saves himself by using the octopus devil. Back inside, the others prepare to continue fighting. However, Aki suddenly freezes, horrified and confused by a vision shown him by the future devil. Outside, Santa Claus sacrifices an elderly man and the three children he had promised to the hell devil in exchange for sending every living person inside the building to hell. A giant finger then killed those three children. Those inside are suddenly plunged into complete darkness. Meanwhile, those outside watch in horror as a gigantic six-fingered hand descends from the sky and seemingly crushes the building. Moments later, everyone finds themselves standing in a vast grassy field beneath a sky covered by countless moving doors. This is hell. As the group takes in their surroundings, Aki kicks Denji awake. Denji immediately tries to transform, but he's low on blood. Only the tip of a chainsaw emerges from his head. Quanxi proposes a temporary truce between all the different factions while they figure out what's happening. Looking around, she notices that the Fiends, Power, Long, Pinksti, and the Violence Fiend are all suffering nervous breakdowns. Aki asks the Angel Devil to explain their situation. Completely terrified, Angel can only stare blankly as he confirms that they are indeed in hell. Quanxi then asks Pinksti if she knows a way out. Terrified, Pinksti explains that they are being watched by devils whose power far exceeds even that of the Gun Devil. These are the primal fears, devils so terrifying that they have never once died. In desperation, Pinksti begs Quanxi for permission to commit suicide. Quanxi refuses, causing Pinksti to break down in tears. Suddenly, one of the countless doors opens and a black droplet of liquid falls toward the ground. That droplet marks the arrival of the Darkness Devil. The group immediately prepares to fight as darkness spreads around them. A row of bisected astronauts appears, then faster than anyone can react, the Darkness Devil moves past the group. In an instant, every single person's arms are detached from their body. The group collapses to the ground in shock as blood pours from their wounds. Meanwhile, Tolka, now completely under Santa Claus control, presents the Darkness Devil with an offer: Denji's heart in exchange for the power to kill Makima. Backstory occurs where the agent left a secret message for him when it was mentioned that Makima can hear them and it's time to kill her. Back outside Hell, Santa Claus receives a small piece of the Darkness Devil's flesh. Without hesitation, she swallows it whole. As the Darkness Devil accepts Santa Claus's offer, it picks up Tolka and tears him apart. Kusakabe tries to fight back using the Stone Devil's power, but the Darkness Devil simply grabs the Stone Devil and crushes it, killing Kusakabe in the process. Violence Fiend asks Kobeni to take his mask off. Meanwhile, Beam uses blood from his severed arm to revive Denji. Moments later, the Darkness Devil tears Beam apart and kills him. Quanxi and Tamauki prepare to attack, but they are also mutilated alongside Power, Long, and Pingsty. Seeing this violent fiend, after removing his mask, he immediately charges forward with a powerful kick. But before he can reach the Darkness Devil, it speaks in an unknown language. Instantly, multiple holes are blasted through his body. Just then, Denji lunges at the Darkness Devil. As Aki looks at Power's unconscious body, he is reminded of Himeno. He falls to his knees, muttering, "Not again." Before Denji can even touch the Darkness Devil, every bone in his body is crushed and snapped, causing him to collapse to the ground. Still alive, the Violence Fiend launches another attack. This time, the Darkness Devil responds by summoning a massive blade and impaling him through the body. As the Violence Fiend's blood rains down, the Darkness Devil crouches and looms over Aki. As the angel watches, too terrified to even move, the Darkness Devil slowly turns toward him. Without warning, Angel begins bleeding from his eyes, nose and mouth before collapsing to the ground. Aki soon starts bleeding as well, while the Darkness Devil reaches out toward him. Suddenly, Princey appears and lunges at the Darkness Devil. Like everyone before her, she is completely overwhelmed before she can even make contact. Quickly communicating with Makima, Princey is ordered to summon her into hell. Princey hesitates, but Makima commands her again. Unable to refuse, Princey obeys and Makima emerges in hell. Makima and the Darkness Devil immediately face each other and simultaneously snap their fingers. Makima's finger suddenly breaks while blood erupts from the many mouths covering the Darkness Devil's body. Makima then walks over to Tolka's body. As she extends her arm, her bones begin twisting and cracking. At the same time, the Darkness Devil summons a sword. While Makima places a hand on Tolka's severed head, Tolka offers all of himself to the Hell Devil in exchange for sending everyone back. Right then, a sword impales her. In an instant, the entire group is transported from Hell to the rooftop of the department store where Santa Claus had been waiting. At the same time, Santa Claus absorbs her remaining dolls and transforms into a tall, multi-armed creature. She approaches Makima while taunting her. Meanwhile, Makima picks up Denji's torso and feeds him some of her blood before pulling her starter cord. Santa Claus explains that after consuming the Darkness Devil's flesh, any attack made in darkness will no longer affect her. Makima simply turns to Denji and asks if he will save her. Having transformed, Denji responds with an aggressive woof. Before joining the battle, Kishibe and Yoshida remain outside, finishing off the remaining dolls. The two discuss Makima and acknowledge that her motives go far beyond those of public safety. When Kishibe asks whether Makima can hear them, Yoshida explains that she currently can't because none of her subordinates are nearby. He adds that she can only borrow the senses of lower life forms, such as rats and birds. Kishibe says not to put his nose in these things. Yoshida replies he doesn't have time as he is in high school. Back on the rooftop, Denji charges Santa Claus and slices one of her arms while angrily yelling about her putting Power and the others in danger. By blasting herself through the floor, Santa Claus instantly regenerates and Denji gets back up and attacks again, only to be knocked away by another swarm of dolls. Nearby, Sugihagi watches while holding Quanxi's severed head. Removing her eye patch and reaching into the empty socket, she pulls out a long arrow-shaped blade before tossing Quanxi's head into the swarm, attacking Denji. The dolls are instantly shredded apart as Quanxi revives in her hybrid form, proving that she isn't human either. Quanxi agrees to fight alongside Denji to avenge Long and Pingsty and says fighting against dolls is pointless and suddenly disappears. Santa Claus was moving through a hallway and suddenly she is shredded into pieces. While healing, Santa Claus congratulates Quanxi on being men as the first devil hunter and wonders how she is supposed to fight someone moving faster than she can even perceive. To fight Denji, Santa Claus suddenly restores the humanity of her dolls. Their minds return, but they are still forced to continue attacking. As Denji watches it, he can only stare in disbelief and says, "That's some real villain shit right there." Now faced with human-looking dolls begging for their lives, Denji chooses to run instead of fighting. However, every escape route is blocked, forcing him to impale one of the dolls with his chainsaw. Feeling guilty, Denji begins holding back, allowing the other dolls to slowly swarm him. Suddenly, Quanxi appears and blasts the remaining dolls apart. She tells Denji that the dolls are only imitating humans. When Denji asks how she can be so sure, Quanxi replies that believing that is the only way he can bring himself to kill them. She reminds him that ignorance is bliss. Using the momentary pause, Santa Claus bursts through a wall and grabs Quanxi, but she cuts her to pieces, and looking up, Quanxi realizes that night has fallen. With darkness now surrounding them, Santa Claus becomes even stronger. Santa Claus then strikes Denji, launching him forward a nearby gas station while casually catching the projectiles fired by Quanxi. Turning around, Quanxi sees that Santa Claus has transformed Long and Pinksty corpses into dolls and taken Sugihagi's hostage. Unable to bring herself to fight them, Quanxi hesitates. That hesitation allows the Pinksty doll to stab her through the chest. Seeing this, Santa Claus wonders if she might be able to turn Quanxi into a doll as well. Suddenly, after covering himself in gasoline, he grinds his chainsaw together to create a spark and set himself on fire. Then he launches himself at a shocked Santa Claus and begins tearing her body as she screams in pain. Denji and Santa Claus both writhe in pain. After knocking him back, Santa Claus instantly regenerates and mocks him for being reckless. Denji fires back, claiming he's watched plenty of educational programming before revealing that the chain from his chainsaw is wrapped around Santa Claus's body. Using it to keep her close, he lunges forward again and tears into her. Santa Claus points out the futility of his attacks, explaining that she can spread the damage and pain among her many dolls. However, Denji notices that her regeneration has started slowing down because of the light from his flames. Suddenly, Santa Claus slams him into a wall. A swarm of dolls burst in and begin stabbing him repeatedly from behind. Confident of victory, Santa Claus decides to simply wait for Denji to burn to death from blood loss, mockingly calling him Makima's dog. Instead, Denji tears into the dolls and drinks their blood to restore himself. He tries advancing again, only to be swarmed by even more dolls. Santa Claus mocks him once more, saying he'll soon be reunited with Makima in death. Suddenly, Denji starts pulling on the chainsaw chain connecting them, dragging Santa Claus toward him. Ignoring the attacks of countless dolls, he continues pulling. Growing worried, Santa Claus orders her dolls to keep him away and begins pulling back herself, turning it into a tug of war. At that moment, a pair of dolls driving a car comes speeding around the corner and crashes directly into Denji. The impact triggers a massive explosion. Yet, even after the blast, Denji emerges from the wreckage completely engulfed in flames, never once letting go of the chain. Shocked and horrified, Santa Claus questions what kind of monster he is. Denji proudly reveals that his motivation is still going on vacation with Makima. Hoisting Santa Claus into the air, Denji yanks her toward himself and tears through her body, ripping her apart. As she begins regenerating again, Denji grabs the burning wreckage of the car and slams it onto her. The resulting second explosion tears through her body, reducing her to nothing more than a smoldering mess. As Denji heals himself by drinking the doll's blood, Santa Claus begins threatening him. She reveals that she has armies of dolls stationed all across the world and combined with the power of the Darkness Devil can hunt him everyone he cares about forever, turning his life into a living hell. Denji casually reminds her that he is immortal. Suddenly and completely unexpectedly, Quanxi decapitates him. Quanxi then asks Cosmo to use her ability on Santa Claus. During the entire battle, Cosmo had simply been wandering around the city, waiting for the right moment. Inside her mind, Santa Claus suddenly awakens in an endless library. There she sees Cosmo sitting at the nearby table. Santa Claus dismisses the attack, claiming psychological abilities won't work on her because her mind is connected to dolls across the entire world. Cosmo says she has no personal resentment. Hunting or being hunted are natural courses of life. She explains she's gonna get a complete understanding of the universe. The knowledge she currently has won't even fill a page of the books here, and she'll understand everything. The knowledge is so overwhelming that the victim becomes trapped in a semi-conscious state, able to only think of only one word for the rest of their life: Halloween. As Santa Claus begins falling through the endless library, her body in the real world starts crumbling to dust, repeatedly muttering Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Yoshida and Kishibe then arrive as Quanxi turns to face them. Without a word, both men put on blindfolds. Then Makima appears between them holding a sword. The moment Quanxi sees her, she immediately surrenders. She offers Makima anything she wants in exchange for sparing her companions. Makima doesn't even acknowledge the request. Makima says a corpse is talking, and instantly all of them are decapitated in a single wing. Elsewhere, a news broadcast reports on dolls around the world that have become trapped, endlessly repeating Halloween due to Cosmos' power. Among them is Aldo, who is also wandering aimlessly while repeating the word. Unlike the others, however, obvious pain can still be seen in his eyes. Back at the scene, Yoshida removes his blindfold and asks Kishibe why doesn't he do the same. Kishibe simply replies that he doesn't want to see a damn thing. In the end, despite all the assassins, devils, and nightmares thrown at him, Denji somehow finds a way to win in the most Denji way possible. But even though the main threat is gone, something still feels off. Throughout the arc, Makima has been working behind the scenes, and it's becoming clear that she is hiding something much darker than anyone expected. And if things weren't already bad enough, the story now moves into the Gun Devil arc, focusing on the most feared devil in the world and the threat that has been hanging over the series from the very beginning. As for now, that's it from me. Thanks for watching.